We're recording. Beautiful. So hello everyone and welcome to the Nebraska Local Food for Schools Round 2 webinar. Today we will be covering important information about the LFS program, including a brief overview of the program, allocated funds, claim reimbursements, and procuring from local producers. If you have any questions from the webinar, please feel free to type them into the chat box and I will take time throughout the webinar to answer your questions. And then a recording of this webinar will be posted on the Local Food for Schools website. Today's session will be recorded for those who cannot attend. Feel free to turn your cameras on or off, whatever you are comfortable with. I just ask that you stay muted during the presentation. So for the agenda today includes a short overview of the LFS program, allowable and unallowable costs, oversight and monitoring, using LFS funds with your existing farm-to-school programs in your school, and how to procure local products. So since there's a lot of you on the chat today, we're going to do introductions via the chat box at the bottom of the screen. So feel free to include your name, your district or organization, your location, and then just for fun, because I'm in a spring mood, go ahead and include your favorite spring produce item. So for those of you who do not know me, my name is Taylor Schorsch, and I'm a program specialist with the Nebraska Department of Education. I live in Omaha, Nebraska, and my favorite spring vegetables are radishes. Let some of those come through. Awesome, looks like we have strawberries, radishes, strawberries. Love to see it. Thank you guys, asparagus, beautiful. So an overview of LFS. The Nebraska Department of Education was awarded nearly $1.5 million in funding to award to eligible school food authorities in Nebraska. The first allocation was distributed to the eastern portion of Nebraska, where 121 eligible SFAs were awarded funds adding up to $880,461.51. For round 2, the Nebraska Department of Education has expanded the LFS allocation statewide, giving an opportunity for SFAs across the state of Nebraska to be eligible for funds up to $1,164,916.97. The LFS program is a reimbursable program, meaning SFAs can be reimbursed for purchases of unprocessed or minimally processed domestic, locally grown food from local producers, small businesses, and socially disadvantaged farmers and producers. LFS funds will reimburse the nonprofit food service account for qualifying food purchases used in the National School Lunch Program. So LFS program overarching goals include to increase local school food purchases, to strengthen local and regional food systems, to support local, small, and socially disadvantaged farmers and producers, and to establish, strengthen, and broaden partnerships between farmers, producers, and schools. Eligible applicants. So eligible applicants of the Local Food for Schools program include schools that are in good standing with their participation in the National School Lunch Program and School Breakfast Program. The second round of LFS funds have been open to the entire state of Nebraska. We are excited to now expand round 2 LFS funds across all counties in Nebraska. Eligible beneficiaries of LFS funds. So as I have mentioned, LFS funds must be used to purchase locally grown products from small businesses. To receive reimbursement for your purchases, you must ensure you are purchasing only from farmers, producers, processors, or distributors of local domestic product. SFA should also target socially disadvantaged farmers and producers to the extent practical. So what exactly does local mean? For the LFS program, the USDA defined local and regional food as food that is raised, produced, aggregated, or collected from multiple farmers, stored, processed, and distributed in Nebraska or within 400 miles of the delivery location. A local or regional producer is defined as a farmer, producer, rancher, processor, or distributor in Nebraska or within 400 miles of the delivery location. So as I mentioned previously, you must target socially disadvantaged businesses to the extent practical. The USDA defines socially disadvantaged producers or members as somebody who has been subject to discrimination based on age, color, race, national origin, sex, disability, religion, sexual orientation, political beliefs, reprisal, or someone who receives income derived from public assistance programs. A small business is a for-profit business of any legal structure, independently owned and operated, and not nationally dominant in its field. It must also be physically located and operated in the US or its territories and have fewer than 500 employees. So what can be purchased with my LFS allocation? Purchases made through the LFS program must consist of local, unprocessed, or minimally processed foods. These foods can be in various forms such as whole, cut, pureed, fresh, frozen, canned, or dried. Examples of eligible items include fluid milk, cheese, yogurt, fruit, vegetables, 100% fruit juices, whole grain rich products, processed meats, eggs, and beans or legumes. It's important to note that Highland does not qualify for fluid milk as this is not a small business. Please be aware that LFS funds can only be used to cover the cost of the meat and the end products, not for purchasing an entire cow. LFS funds can be used to cover the processing fee for the meat and the products. For example, if you were to purchase ground beef from a locker. Items that are not allowed for purchase with LFS funds include significantly processed or ready-to-eat foods such as pre-made pizza, breads, muffins, crackers, prepackaged sandwiches, chicken nuggets or other breaded meat items, cereal, produce seeds, and live animals. So the opt-in survey. The opt-in survey is how SFAs will record whether they are interested in participating in the LFS program or not. You will receive an email early next week with a link for the opt-in survey. The survey will be open for 3 weeks with a deadline to complete by May 21st of 2024. To complete the LFS opt-in survey, you will need to record your SFA's agreement number. This can be found on the top of your school meals application as shown on the screen. The survey will take approximately 5 to 10 minutes to complete once started. So award timelines. Some important deadlines to remember. The opt-in survey opens on April 23rd, 2024 and closes on May 21st, 2024. SFAs who choose to opt in to the LFS program will receive their grant award notification or their GAN as early as July 1st, 2024. Once schools and organizations receive their GAN, they can begin making purchases for the National School Lunch Program. The second round of funding period will begin as early as July 1st, 2024 and go through June of 2025. Reimbursement requests. School food authorities that have opted into the Round 2 LFS program will now be required to submit quarterly reimbursement requests to NDE Nutrition Services through Google Forms. This process is a change from the previous year when requests were sent through email. It is anticipated that using the Google Forms will improve consistency and provide a more user-friendly tool for schools. The specific quarterly submission dates and payment processing date are clearly indicated on the screen, with the first deadline being September 10th of 2024. Reminders will also be sent out periodically, and these dates can also be referenced in the frequently asked questions section on the LFS website. So required reimbursement request information includes invoice dates, the vendor, the original source if the farm or the producer is not the vendor, to confirm sourcing is from a small business, indicate if the producer providing the product is socially disadvantaged, the delivery miles if outside of Nebraska, if this is the first time purchasing from this producer, if you plan to purchase from this producer again, along with the item quantity, the unit, the total price on the invoice, and the estimated pounds. Make sure to hold on to all invoices as additional information may be requested. So we will now go over what the reimbursement request will look like. So this slide documents the updated claim reimbursement requests. It's important to note that you will need to complete a separate form for each invoice that you receive from producers. The frequently asked questions document is also attached to the Google form, which will help answer any questions that may arise regarding the LFS program and the claim reimbursements. So the Google form will guide you through your claim by starting with your SFA name, your contact email, and then the invoice information as noted on the screen. The questions are very similar to the reimbursement spreadsheet many of you may be familiar with. For claim reimbursement, you will need to include the vendor you receive the goods from and the original source if different from the vendor. The original source is the farm or producer where the product came from. In most cases, this will only be used if you source from a food vendor or the original source is the actual farm and producer that the product came from. As a reminder, LFS funds can only be used on local small businesses, and you will not be able to complete the form if you do not agree to these terms. To streamline things, the form includes all the possible food item descriptions and a box to add products if not listed. In the first round, we noticed a lot of schools listing vegetables as the products purchased. This is not an allowable reimbursement item, as the specific purchased item must be listed. The multiple choice options will allow for less confusion and more accurate data to be collected. Also, the new reimbursement process allows schools to directly attach their invoice with their claim. This is not a requirement, but will help with the claim approval process. The Google Forms link will be sent to schools who choose to opt into the LFS program alongside your individual GAN. The Google Form link will also be posted on the local Food for Schools website. What are some benefits of local food in school meals? Local foods support local farmers, businesses, and local economies. They increase school meals quality and overall program participation. They reduce food waste in schools, increases the kids' willingness to try new fruits and vegetables, supports school wellness policies and broader school board priorities, and aligns with community priorities and advocacy efforts to strengthen local food systems. Farm to School programs help strengthen the relationship between communities and fresh, healthy food from local producers by implementing changes in food purchasing and educational practices at schools and early care and education settings. These programs offer valuable educational experiences for students, such as school gardening and exposure to a variety of local products in school meals programs. Sourcing products from Nebraska producers is a simple way for schools to start incorporating farm-to-school practices. Nebraska Harvest of the Month is a statewide farm-to-school program that showcases various Nebraska local food products each month. Nebraska Harvest of the Month aims to promote local fruits, vegetables, and products while providing resources to schools to encourage sampling and serving local foods to students. Nebraska Harvest of the Month can be a valuable addition to the LFS program by highlighting fresh local foods in school cafeterias. So the Nebraska Harvest of the Month highlights products including beef, bison, rhubarb, melons, and just recently introduced tomatoes, berries, radishes, cucumbers, dairy, honey, and eggs. all of which would be allowable purchases for the LFS program. The Harvest of the Month website offers stickers, coloring pages, trivia, and more, creating a potential connection with the LFS program. And I'm going to go ahead and drop, well, at the end of this slideshow, I don't think I can paste it in now, but I'll go ahead and drop the link to the Harvest of the Month webpage so anybody can go on there and get familiar with some of the resources. So Nebraska Thursdays supports schools statewide in serving a Nebraska-sourced meal in schools' cafeterias on the first Thursday of every month. The tray shown on the screen is a great example of this campaign program. Litchfield Public Schools source their school meals locally, including Greenfield Farm peppers and onions and Harper's Ranch beef for their beef fajitas. They use local Nebraska pinto beans, a local lettuce salad with cherry tomatoes from their school greenhouse, and a homemade pumpkin bar also sourced from their school greenhouse. Nebraska Thursdays may be something your school is already implementing, and using LFS funds is a great way to further promote it. Or vice versa. You can use LFS funds to purchase local foods and use Nebraska Thursday promotional material to encourage increased participation in your school meals program. And finally is Nebraska Crunch Off. Nebraska has held on to the title of Crunch Off champions for 5 years in a row, and that is all due to the support you all have to this amazing initiative. For those who are unfamiliar, the Mountain Plains Crunch Off is a multi-state competition to celebrate Farm to School Month in October. States throughout the region compete to achieve the most per capita crunches into local produce, such as apples, carrots, nuts, and seeds. The Nebraska Crunch Off is another great way to utilize your school's allocated LFS funds to purchase local foods to crunch into. So sourcing local. Sourcing local can be achieved by establishing direct connections with producers, shopping at local retailers, although you must ensure the food that you're purchasing is also local, connecting with processors and food hubs, growing your own garden or advocating for school gardens, and utilizing farmers markets. It's important to note that the growing season may not always align with the school year, especially in Nebraska. The majority of products are typically available during the summer when school is not in session. Therefore, it's advisable to start planning which items you may want to feature in your school meals program now. By purchasing products during the summer, processing and freezing them, they can be used at the start of the school year. So for instance, green beans are readily available in July, and blanching and freezing them can be a great way to use local food for school funds for future meals. Establishing connections early on will make it easier to procure foods throughout the year. During the colder months, producers may have storage crops such as potatoes, onions, and squash, which can be used in school meals. You may also look into connecting with producers that are selling beef or rice or pasta, dairy, beans, as this is another great time to use the funds for other existing products. So Market Maker. Another great tool to source local food is Market Maker. Nebraska Market Maker is a single platform for all food system stakeholders to connect, buy, and sell food and communicate with each other. Market Maker is a space for producers, ranchers, processors, and buyers from across all scales to connect the dots across the food chain. It is also a space to expand the impact of Extension's work in food access, regional food systems, and many other important areas of work. So the platform provides free access for all users. Producers can create a profile for their business, describing their products or any relevant production characteristics, such as certified organic, and any purchasing options. Buyers and consumers can also have a free profile and post in search of items. They can use Market Maker to locate producers in their area or browse available items. Another important aspect of Market Maker is the opportunity for buyers to register and find products that they're looking for. In the past, we have faced challenges in connecting schools with Nebraska food products due to the information gap between buyers and producers. Many producers in our farm to school work express a desire to sell to schools and other institutions, but are unsure of where to begin or whom to contact. This is why Market Maker is so beneficial in providing contact information, volume of product needed, and more. Market Maker is also able to gather information on farm status, such as women-owned, veteran-owned, beginner farmer, Black-owned, and more. This feature can help identify if a producer that you're purchasing from falls under the socially disadvantaged category. So for more information on how to operate Market Maker, you can contact Ben Jewell at Extension, and I will have to drop his email also in the chat box at the end. Or you can scan the QR code that was on the previous screen. So let me back up. If anyone wants to scan that, and that'll take you to a Google form, which you can fill out, and Extension will reach out to you. And the links displayed on the screen offer more information on the farm to school in Nebraska and across the nation. If you have any further questions or requests, please feel free to reach out. The slide deck will be posted on the website along with the recording for easy access to these links for the future. Additionally, though, you can scan those QR codes that are next to all of these links and they'll direct you to the corresponding websites. So that concludes the presentation. I will now answer any questions that you may have. Let's see, open the chat box. Alrighty.
Hey, Taylor, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Hi, Katie.
Cool, cool. We've had some great questions in the chat box. I won't go through them because you can totally do that, but I did provide answers when I knew them. So maybe you do want to announce the questions and the answers. Otherwise, I can help you do that too. You let me know.
Absolutely. How it looks like, let's see. Can we purchase ground beef locally at a butcher plant downtown if it's not USDA approved? So they do need to be USDA inspected, so that would not be an approved site. Will we have access to the PowerPoint from this training? Yes, I will post it onto the website along with the recording, and I'll send out an email to everyone that registered and everyone that's eligible for the funds. So if you weren't able to attend or somebody in your district wasn't able to attend, they will have access to this. Okay, perfect. So my school gets their meals from West Side Service. How does that work in this case? So it looks like Katie answered, you can work with Westside to identify which menu items qualify as LFS purchases and ask them to provide supporting documentation. You can also purchase local items alongside the meals that you serve. So local apples for the crunch off. Yes, great questions. Looks like all of them have been answered. Does honey have any special procurement rules? Not that I'm aware of. Katie, do you know of anything?
I'm also not thinking that there are any.
Yeah, so we had a few schools that actually purchased honey using the LFS funds for the first round. So
I think there's a possibility that there's a more like local or state level rule about the producers that sell those things. And your best bet with making sure you have correct information on those things would be to check with the Department of Ag. They understand and know the rules and the requirements for local producers for things that come from animals. So a check there.
Awesome. Looks like, do we have to fill this form every month? So it is a quarterly reimbursement. So the first quarter or the first submission is due on September. So that will be all of your purchases from July 1st until August 30th. And all of this is available in the frequently asked questions as well, but it's a quarterly basis. Is the reimbursement 100%? Because I'm not understanding that question. So essentially you will submit a claim for all of the purchases you made. And based on your allocated amount, that's how much you can get refunded for.
And Taylor, there was a question. Oh, in a town near where Denise lives, or where she works anyway, there's a store that showcases small farm grown items. So would purchases from that store be acceptable use of LFS funds?
So as long as the items that you're purchasing are local in themselves or within the state of Nebraska or within 400 miles. We've had a little bit of issues with using those smaller markets, but not purchasing those local products. So just making sure that you can track back to whoever purchased that or whoever processed that item. As long as it's a local product, then that would be acceptable.
And did you already respond to Olivia's question about filling out the form monthly?
I
Sorry if
did,
I missed
yep.
that.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it's a quarterly reimbursement.
And Jordan was that question about eggs. And if I remember correctly, I think to safely purchase eggs from a place that's like not a grocery store, you know, I believe that they have to register with the Department of Ag, and then they're provided like a code that proves they've registered their egg production with NDA. And that is technically the requirement for them to be able to sell what they're making. So
if I
hopefully
buy
that
tomato plants from our school greenhouse in the spring, can I donate the price paid for the fresh tomatoes in the fall for school meals in the greenhouse? Mm,
I got to think about that one for a moment.
No,
Tammy.
I'm turned dead. Tammy, if you want to jump off mute and explain your question a little bit more, that would be super helpful.
You're saying you just want to grow tomatoes. You've purchased the plants and you're going to plant them in your school garden? That wouldn't be the, like, what's the difference between that and a greenhouse, I guess? I'm obviously confused.
And then Bryce asked, where is the allocated amount? So the allocated amount is posted on the local Food for Schools website. It was also in the most recent email that was sent out about this reminder for the webinar. If you see if I can pull it up really quick. On the very bottom, it'll say allocated funds. And that's where that'll all be allocated for you. So my school is managed by an organization. They are the ones who manage the money and pay the bills. How this works, it's not the school who manages the money. Olivia, are you operating under a food service management company, or I know you mentioned that you were vended through Westside. I don't know if you want to jump off and talk a little bit more about what's going on with that.
Or you could just tell us which school you're with. That might help shed some light on advice we would give to you, Olivia. What does CUES stand for? Oh, Sacred Heart. Yeah, thank you. You're part of the
so offended.
So the larger church organization manages the funds for several schools in the consortium, right? Cool. Yeah, you can still utilize the funds using the process and ideas we suggested in your first question up above in the chat. And since it's a larger consortium that essentially receives the reimbursement, like the typical meal reimbursement from us, and would pay the bills that Westside or the invoices sent to the organization for the meals Westside provides to you, the reimbursement money through the LFS program would just be money that goes into that account or the line item that they use to track income and expenses related to the school nutrition programs. So it wouldn't go directly just to your school, and that's okay. We understand it goes to the larger organization or the consortium that manages the finances for several of those non-publics.
Yeah, so the claim will be submitted, all your claims will be submitted based on the quarterly. So any purchases that you made for this first quarter, which is going to be July 1st to September 30th, any purchases you made during that time will be on that first claim. So you wouldn't submit every claim as you're purchasing things, you would just submit them all into one quarterly claim reimbursement. Vegetables from farmers markets are okay, yes. One of my favorite ways to purchase. Besides market maker, what are some other ways to find eligible farmers? The best way, I mean, I know I mentioned this in the slide, and let me go back to it. I mean, this is going to be the best way to find some of those local producers. So either directly from the producers, anyone that might be in your community, any local retailers that you have in your community, as long as it is from a small business, any food hubs, any gardens that you have, or farmers markets that are available in your community as well. So it's really just building those connections with what you might already know, or that's close around in your community or your district. And if you have any more questions about that, you can always reach out to me and I can help you work through Market Maker. And we can kind of see what's available close to your area.
Did you respond to Tiffany's question, Taylor? I was sort of typing an answer and I don't know if I didn't hear you. She asked if LFS funds are obviously used to purchase produce, that they maybe want to blanch and freeze and use later. That would be fine. She asked if there are also funds allocated through this program to use for equipment or to pay for staff time on the process of preserving a locally purchased, procured or produced item.
Like F&B, yeah, that's a really great question. It does not allow for equipment or for paying for hours worked, correct, Katie? Yeah. So unfortunately, no, it's just the food that you're purchasing for use in your school meals programs.
And Jane Ryan from Fairbury asked a great question, and it probably does warrant clarification of a previous answer I provided in writing. Hers was sent at 2:32, Taylor.
Correct, yeah. Yeah, so as long as you're not purchasing an entire live cow and then having it processed. So as she mentioned, she had purchased the head of beef and had it processed into ground beef, I think it was. So that's allowable, but as long as you are not purchasing a live cow, having it butchered, and then using those funds to cover the live cow, the butchering, and the processing, that makes sense.
Yeah, you definitely can't like purchase a cow that you're going to feed as like a project for FFA or some other sort of student group that also then gets used in the school meals program once you've raised it and fed it enough. So
yes, that's correct, Jane. It should be the hanging weight. Now, will there be enough time to complete the market maker account to find out what avenues are available prior to saying yes or no to the funds? So you can actually go onto the market maker website or buy fresh, buy local. And you can look to see what's already in the account or what other avenues might be available close to where you're located. So that might be a good place to start. But there's definitely enough time, I mean, to make an account if that's something you're interested in, but you can also go in as a guest and just kind of browse around and see what might be available.
Olivia, to respond to your question about who would complete the reimbursement request form, that Google form that Taylor had in the earlier portion of the training, I think your answer to that just depends on what you coordinate with the maybe more administrative or fiscal or financial staff at the consortium. You know, they might be fine and want you actually to coordinate with Westside to get the supporting documentation needed for the reimbursement. Or they may want to do that, but I think that's definitely at your discretion. We are fine with whoever does it, as long as it's someone who can provide the correct and accurate information in the reimbursement request form.
Does chicken have to be purchased by a USDA inspected business like beef does? I know we ran into this last year, and I don't know if you can talk on this, Katie. I can't remember what I think it was yes, but I believe there was something similar with the eggs.
Which one? Oh, the chicken question?
Mhm.
I'm gonna have to look that one up, Jessica. I'll try to do that before we sign off here, before you leave. Stick around.
So Gail asked, are we obligated to use all of the funds? So it is highly recommended and advised to use all of the funds that you are allocated. When the opt-in survey has an option that says if I don't use 50% of the funds, then NDE can take the existing and give it to somebody that is spending the funds. But yes, it is definitely highly advised to spend what you are allocated. And if you have questions on how you might be able to make that possible or different ideas for purchasing down your funds, you can reach out to me as well.
Who asked the question about the tomatoes from the greenhouse? Because Marna has, I think, a very good answer with guidance here. Tammy asked it about buying tomato plants from the greenhouse in the spring. I don't know. I think we understand your question well enough to provide an answer to it. And LFS funds are intended to be funds that funnel through the school nutrition programs to literally help local producers, like create a market for them. And therefore, you want to purchase like the final product with the money. So I hope that answers that question. Purchasing plants from a greenhouse would not be an allowable use of the LFS funds.
So Dusty asked, if I have beef donated, but the school has to cover the cost of processing, can you use funds for the processing fee? Yes, you can.
And Andrew asked a good question that Smart Chicken would not qualify. Yes, Taylor responded, not a small business. Very good. And Bryce says this is his last question, only if you promise.
You purchase boxed beef as long as it is grown within 400 miles. Yes.
And thanks for spreading the wealth
Mm-hmm.
with your idea. That's good.
See, and then Tiffany asked, so she's located in Southwest Nebraska. Basically, could she buy into the neighboring states? And yes, that is allowed as long as it's within a 400-mile radius from the delivery location. So it'd be 400 miles from your Southwest school. So you could go into any of the neighboring states.
I think the answer to Jane's question is yes.
Mhm.
Not only are the funds intended to support local producers, but I think the guidance also mentions local processors could be a beneficiary of the program as well.
Alrighty. We have any other questions? I don't know if I skipped over anything. No, Taylor asked Jordan another question about USDA facilities. Oh, perfect.
The unanswered question I don't have a response to yet is Jordan's question about poultry.
Mm-hmm.
So we will investigate that, Jordan, and try to include that in a question and answer or frequently asked questions document so you can access the answer then. And I will also try to remember that you asked the question and we can send you a message directly as well.
Does all meat have to be USDA approved? So that was another question that was asked earlier that Katie was going to look into. I want to say yes, but I don't know for sure.
I think there are some caveats or exceptions maybe to that rule. So we'll get that in writing and be able to share it with all of you who are attending on the training today, because you registered through Zoom utilizing your email address. So we've got a good way to aggregate contact info for this group, and we can share that information and some supporting documentation. Thanks for your patience on that one.
Yeah, definitely. And I can add that to the frequently asked questions as well.
Agree with you, Renee. That's one of those caveats. I was like, I think there's some exceptions. Yeah, the bison is one of them.
Thank you. Was there any downsides that schools had? That had tried it. Think of any downsides. I mean, I don't know if any schools want to chime in. Was there anything that came up from the first round or anything like that? I mean, I can't speak for all the schools. Well, that is all that we have scheduled for today. If you don't have any other questions, you're more than welcome to sign off. You can email me with any other questions that might come up. And I will definitely be in contact with everyone that was here and then anyone that's eligible when the opt-in survey is available, and keep you all in contact with things moving forward. So a private donor would qualify, just as long as they have less than 500 employees, essentially. You just don't want to be purchasing from those big, like Highland and Smart Chicken that was already mentioned, things like that. Yep, so the opt-in survey will be sent out to everyone that provided their email to this meeting, and also just everyone that's eligible in general for the LFS fund. So whatever email is in your nutrition services application is where it will be sent to. Yeah, so please reach out if you have any other questions. Otherwise, you are free to sign off and enjoy the rest of your day.